main issues were loneliness. It's that whole feeling about being alone, and that's a human trait. So being in a caravan, being alone out in the middle of the outback, completely alone without any kind of service range, that's alone. So I spent the next hour driving, hunched up at the wheel through some of the most beautiful countryside you've ever seen out in the outback, but terrified of all the things that might go wrong. Anyway, an hour passed, I was feeling like this, and I'm running through all the logistics. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I'm literally 2,500 k's or something like that from Sydney, 2,500 k's from Brisbane, 2,500 k's from Cairns. I am so far from everywhere, and I got two choices here. I could just like drive to the next major centre and then just fly somebody in from home and then just drive home with my tail between my legs, or I could just get over the fear.
Hello and welcome to the Off Grid Down Under podcast and video series. It's always weird when you're sort of heading back down south again, like it's like when you're leaving the holiday. So we're past halfway. It has been such a journey to get here for me, such a lot of self-doubt and just challenges and questioning myself, and just, you know, the self-belief thing is really big. And to do something like this, I highly recommend from the point of view that you do it, so you do actually challenge yourself and you do put yourself under that kind of test, because it's so easy to say no. I'll do it later, I'll do it with someone else, I'll wait till I have a partner, I'll wait till the moons align, I'll wait till I have more money, I'll wait till I have a better vehicle, I'll just keep waiting. And then you don't do it, 10 years passes, and then you'll wait, then you're too old. So, yeah, don't wait. All I can say to you is, if you have a dream, a vision, just anything that you want to do, I don't care if it's driving up to the tip of Australia or whatever it is, starting ballet lessons, just do it. Don't wait, make the plans, make the proper preparation so you're not flying blind, but just do it, you can't, what are you waiting for? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. The only thing you're waiting for is you. And just getting started and planning and prepping and setting the date is the most important thing, because once you set a date, then it becomes real. Hey guys, Melissa here from Off Grid Down Under. Thank you so much for tuning into our podcast and our video channel. Today what I want to talk about is, normally I interview people, but today I'm actually going to talk about myself. So I did, if you've tuned in and seen any of my YouTube videos, I did back in July, August of 2023, I did a solo woman trip. I did like a big lap all around Queensland actually. I started from Sydney, drove up to Brisbane, picked up the XT10E, then I drove in convoy all the way out to Birdsville, the big red bash, with the MDC owners group, which is something I'll talk about in a minute. And then I spent some time there with the group in convoy, which is great. Got my feet sort of, firmly planted in the ground of getting back into camping again after a 7-year layoff from camping, and felt really confident. So I took myself off solo, driving all the way up to the top of the state, going through some pretty remote little towns, getting up to Caravan, up in the top of the Gulf of Carpentaria, and then going across the Savannah Highway all the way to the east, where I went to Mossman Gorge, the Daintree, Port Douglas. Then I met up with my good friends Rolly and Mandy, who are from Memories Not Money. That's a YouTube channel, but they're also part of the MDC owners group too, and I met them the first night of doing that trip. And
and they so graciously offered to me to meet up with them and do Cape York with them in convoy, because I knew that I wanted to do Cape York solo, but I was concerned, obviously, because I'm not a hardened four-wheel driver. I don't know much about the mechanics of a car, and I thought if ever there was one place where it was a bit remote, that would be Cape York. So went in convoy with them, which was amazing. We spent nearly 2 weeks in the Cape together, and then I came back to the East Coast and then back to Sydney again. That was my big trip. It was 12,000 kilometres, and I did that as a solo woman. I drove every single one of those kilometres. I think on one day of my whole trip, Mandy jumped in the front seat with me for about 3 or 4 hours while we were out some remote area getting across to Birdsville, and we ate chocolate and laughed, but I drove the whole way. So anyway, I wanted to share with a lot of you, because while I was talking about that trip and while I made the videos, we're getting a lot of really nice feedback about but the questions really that I might not have answered so much in those videos, and so I thought this would be the great forum to do it in. Questions about what it was like being a solo female travelling, questions around security, questions around being on my own, like being alone. How did that feel? And just would I do it again? And any tips and recommendations that I might have. So I'm going to cover them off in this episode. I really hope you enjoy it. First question I think that a lot of people want to know is what inspired me to do this trip by myself. And it's so funny because I've come from a lifetime of camping, really. Like, I went around Australia in a combi van when I was 21, took our kids camping, went into Central Australia a lot. I've been in tents, I've been in combi vans with my late husband, Steve Robson, who was the New South Wales State Manager for MDC. Some of you guys might remember him. He was with the company, he started 13 years ago and was with them until he passed away 7 years ago. Like, we were like a merged family. He had his kids, I had my kids. We used to go camping all the time. So we'd have his 2, my 3, plus a nephew, plus 2 dogs, and we'd all go camping together. And we would do that then in, we had an off-road camper trailer that we had through MDC. We had a lot of beautiful trips that way. But we also did a lot of testing some caravans for MDC, and I was lucky enough to go on those trips. And the biggest one was in 2016 when we went from Brisbane to Birdsville and all the way across to Broome. So I have got a really good background in camping, but when Steve died, it was kind of like my belief that I could do a camping trip by myself went out the window. Like, I just, even though I could tow before then, it's so funny that when you're solo and on your own, you sort of listen to societal norms as that maybe you can't do it by yourself. And I never really questioned that, and I just sort of thought that would be the case. I was lucky enough, I had a couple of nice partners in that period of time, and every time I might, hang out with somebody, I'd be like, okay, do you like camping? Because that's really important to me. And I really wanted to get back into my camping life again, thinking that I needed to have a male companion to do that with. And of course their answer was always, yes, love camping. But it turns out my idea of camping is very different to other people's idea of camping. It just occurred to me that for whatever reason, the universe was saying to me, you need to do this by yourself. You're not going to get to do this trip with somebody else. You need to go by yourself. And so that's what I did. I reached out to MDC. I was given an opportunity to test drive the XT10E, which is an amazing van. Was just given the rundown on how to use it, operate it. I hooked it up to the back of an LDV, and it was mine to keep and to tow and to take around Queensland. I planned out my itinerary where I wanted to go. I knew I was going to be solo. I had to rely on myself. When you're on your own, there's no one else to rely on. And I just started planning the trip and what it might look like. So I was going to parts of Queensland I've never been to before, like Birdsville I've been to many a time, so I knew what I was doing. But there were plenty parts of Queensland that I didn't have a clue about, never done before, and so I really just went about researching what I might need to know. So obviously I knew that I had to learn how to have road etiquette. I think when you're towing out there on those roads, like they are single lane dirt roads. You're using that road with road trains approaching you, other caravanners, people in convoy that could be 5, 6 deep. You need to learn how to be able to overtake all those. You need to understand what to do, how to approach cattle on the road or the other wide variety of animals that you might see on the road. You need to know how to even just fuel up at the right places and to not run out of fuel, because being a city girl, like, we're used to just being able to pull over whenever we need to get fuel, but having to be educated on where the next fuel stops were, educate myself on where I wanted to camp and stay, because it's not just easy to go, Gone are the days where we used to just pull up a caravan park and then just check in. You actually have to pre-book a lot at the time now because caravanning is so popular. So I just had to get myself really adjusted to that kind of thinking. And so I watched a lot of YouTube videos, kind of like this, and I listened to a lot of podcasts. I talk to people. I am part of the MDC owners group, so I'm on those Facebook groups anyway. A lot of people ask questions in there and share a lot of their knowledge. So I really geared up with information and knowledge that I needed that was relevant to my trip and what I needed to do. I think that is the biggest tip I've got, is that if you're going to plan a trip like this, plan what you're going to do, map out an itinerary, go to YouTube. It is the most incredible resource tool you're ever going to find. Have a plan that you can loosely move from, because I had a date that I thought I was going to be in Cape York, but I had to adjust that date because when I then got the offer from Mandy and Rolly to join them in convoy with them, I had to adjust my trip by about 10 days to fit in with them. Probably my big thing that I've discovered when I was doing the solo trip was that it's more work. I'll just be really honest. You are multiple people. You're in charge of security. You're in charge of driving. You're in charge of navigation. You're in charge of cooking, cleaning, setting up, cleaning up, washing, entertainment. You do everything. And I think I found that I noticed that when I was setting up and packing down, it always took me a little bit longer than everybody else, so I had to get really good with my timing as well when I was in convoy. And I also noticed that I would get tired of most people that I'd be traveling convoy with because I couldn't share the driving and I couldn't share all of the different activities that we did. So I just had to plan trips where I knew that I could, if I was driving, say, a big stretch, sometimes I'd drive maybe a 600-kilometre stretch, that I would leave it early enough in the daytime that I would have enough stops in between it, that I could stop, have a break, have a meal if I needed a snooze, which I never did. You could have a snooze, just replenish and get on the road again, but then still be into camp, 3 or 4 o'clock that afternoon. Make sure that you got there in time, because that was the other thing as far as the planning goes. You don't want to get there too late, even if you've booked in advance. If you get there too late and you get there at dark, it's very, very hard to reverse your caravan into a spot if you're not a pro reverser. And even if you are good at reversing, doing it in the dark is very different to doing it at night time. I am not a pro reverser. In fact, I'm quite ordinary at it, doing it by myself. The tip I have for you is getting there at daylight. I would first of all ask at reception if they could help. Sometimes they could, sometimes they just didn't have the manpower to do it, which is okay. Then I would basically go there, put myself in front of my caravan, line it up, pull out in front, get it all lined up. But then I would, if it's in the daytime, there's always people walking past. And it never failed me. There was always so many people that were really gracious. They could see that I was on my own. And often they would offer, they'd call out and go, "Hey love, do you need a hand?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And then I would never get out of my car. I always made sure that I put it in, but they would just stand there and just give me a couple of tips, like right hand down, left hand down, turn now, turn back in. Yeah, looking good, nothing behind you, that kind of thing. So don't let things intimidate you. The MDC owners group, I really want to talk about that now. If you own an MDC or thinking about owning an MDC, you can join the owners group. And I'll put the link down here, which is run by Daniel Easton, and that's the one that you want to join. It's 20,000 strong. You've got a lot of MDC salespeople and technicians, and I'm in there, people in there that are really helpful and can help you out. But it is privately run, so it's run by owners that own the caravans, and it's a really positive group. That's why I would like you to join that one if you're going to join any of the MDC groups. And you can go on there any day or night with any kind of question, stupid or not stupid, and there's no such thing as a stupid question anyway. And there's always somebody there, particularly the MDC staff in the technical division, that will help you out with any question that you have. Now, I don't have a bucket load of money behind me that's there for me to go on these amazing trips and just spend a ton of money, because as we know, fuel prices are up there. I was on my own, so I'm not sharing the cost of anything with anybody. I was staying in caravan parks, because I do recommend that if you are a solo female and security is important to you, that book ahead into caravan parks. But there's a cost involved with that. Like, I love free camping when I'm with a group of people or with a partner or with a friend or my kids, but when I'm on my own, I do prefer the security of in the remoter areas of staying in the caravan park. So they cost money. So while I was traveling, I actually had my own branding and marketing business. So I had a Starlink, which I set up, and Vaughan from MDC helped me set that up on our first night out. And I was in touch with my clients running things. So I was away for 2 months. And while I was away, I built websites, designed logos, videos, ran marketing classes, did private coaching. I think I designed a brochure. Like, I did all this work. I invoiced and just stayed in contact with everybody that way. The other tip I have for you too is you have to be with Telstra. The mobile coverage that Telstra provide, and I obviously don't get any kickbacks, but I just want to say that from a safety point of view, with Telstra, you just have more range. I'm with Optus and I had very limited range most of the time, but I had Starlink, which was great, so I felt very safe and secure because I had that. To set that up, I think to buy my unit was a $600, $700 fee for the satellite dish, and then to run it every monthly cost, I think it was about $179 a month. So it was well worth it. I was able to run my businesses, keep making an income, travel around and feel connected back to home, but also be traveling on the road. So one of the really popular questions I got asked were what were some of the challenges that I experienced as a solo traveller. And I like to say, even though obviously I'm a woman, I like to say solo traveller because there's lots of guys that like to travel solo as well. So it's probably the main issues were loneliness. It's that whole feeling about being alone, and that's a human trait. Like, most people fear being alone. It's just a trait. So being in a caravan, being alone out in the middle of the outback, completely alone without any kind of service range, that's alone. And I can't tell you actually, I guess because I had so much faith in the caravan and the car that I was using, that gave me the confidence to do it. Like, I felt like it was very reliable and I was going to get wherever I was going to quite safely. So that was, having confidence in the product that you're taking out is incredibly important. The other thing is, it was a really great personal development journey for me, and that was the whole point of some of my trip. It's kind of like a bit of a mission of mine, a bit of a passion of mine, to prove to other women in particular, but men too, you know, I'm over 50, that we can still do things. We're still really relevant. We are smarter than we've ever been, more capable than we've ever been, probably got more money now because our kids have left home and off our hands than we've ever had, more time than we've ever had. We've built up our careers to being better than they've ever been. We have got the time and the capabilities to get out there and actually see a lot of Australia and live that dream. But it was challenging to do it, but it was exceptionally rewarding to do it as well. Other challenges that I had was people kept calling me out on being solo, and they would use the word single all the time. I pulled into a little town called Dejara, and it was in between, from memory, I was leaving Baduri and then trying to get to Mount Isa, so it was in between. Really quiet little town, really off the tracks. I just left my convoy group, so I was feeling vulnerable, but very excited, very empowered. So I got into town, got to the petrol station, and a lady kind of similar to my age came up to me and she was like, "Oh my God, are you on your own?" I said, yeah, I'm on my own. I was all very proud of myself. And she's like, "Seriously, you're on your own?" And like her tone kind of went a bit weird. But yes, I'm on my own. And she's like, "Wow, aren't you scared?" I was like, "Oh, no, I'm okay." But she kept going on and on about it. She's like, "Wow, just take my hat off to you. I'd be so scared. Aren't you scared of what would happen? What would happen if you break down? What would happen if somebody tries to break into your van? What would happen? What?" And she just really went down this spiral. And I was like, "Wow, lady, stop." I have not, yes, I've thought of all these things and I've got a solution to all of these things to combat these things, but you can't live life thinking like that. You know, like, we live in houses by ourselves. What would happen if somebody broke into our house and tried to do whatever they need to do? You know, it could happen, yes. The chances of it happening are very remote. And so I don't want to not live my life because some really, really remote thing might happen, which could happen, by the way, if I was with somebody else as well. You're not safe just because you're with somebody else. You might feel like you're safe because you're with somebody else, but if somebody has got the wrong intentions, or something is going to go wrong, or you're going to spin off the road, or just something's going to happen, or your car's going to break down, whether you're alone or with somebody else, it's no easier if you were with somebody else, unless they're a mechanic and can fix the problem. So that really threw me into a spiral, and I actually left town not feeling good about things. And she was kind-hearted and meant well, but it wasn't great. And so I spent the next hour driving, hunched up at the wheel, through some of the most beautiful countryside you've ever seen out in the outback, but terrified of all the things that might go wrong. Anyway, an hour passed. I was feeling like this, and I'm running through all the logistics. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I'm literally 2,500 Ks or something like that from Sydney, 2,500 Ks from Brisbane, 2,500 Ks from Cairns. I am so far from everywhere. And I got two choices here. I could just like drive to the next major centre and then just fly somebody in from home and then just drive home with my tail between my legs. Or I could just get over the fear accept it, flip it on its head, look at all the things that I actually have going for me and why I shouldn't have any fear, and just do this bloody holiday and have a great time, and what will be will be. So thank goodness I chose option B. It was a real come to yourself kind of moment. I'm really proud of myself, actually. I was doing all the right things. I wasn't driving while I was sleepy. I was eating properly. I was not drinking alcohol the night before I would leave. Like, I did everything right. So I trusted myself, trusted everything that I had around me, and trusted my knowledge, and from that moment on had an amazing time. So that was by far the biggest challenge, was constantly being asked by people, first of all, is it true that you're on your own? That's incredible. But then putting their minds at ease that I was okay. So while we're talking about challenges, now let's talk about safety. There were some really good safety tips that I did get from Facebook groups and YouTube channels, and I did these things, and I think this really helped me to feel confident too. So one thing I didn't do was if I was on my own at different times, I wouldn't post in real time where I was. So I remember when I got into Mount Isa, I'd heard a lot of things about Mount Isa. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not here to judge Mount Isa, but I'd heard stuff about it, you know, being a bit more of a high crime rate and stuff. So, and I thought we just left the bash, and I did stand out a bit, being, you know, a small petite blonde in a solo caravan, and I thought, so I won't put that on when I'm in Mount Isa. I'll wait till I'm out of Mount Isa before I put that on my social media channels, because I was also sharing my adventure and letting people know what I was doing, because it's all part of what I do with personal branding and marketing. So I would wait till I was out of there, and then I would put up that I was there. So it was like no one ever really knew where I was at the time of when I was posting, because I actually wasn't there. So I never post in real time. Other things that I would do, the caravan park that I was in Mount Isa had this most beautiful big red sort of mountain thing behind it. Gorgeous landscape. A couple of times, I think I did put up a couple of posts that were more generic looking and didn't say that I was in Mount Isa. I made sure that there were no really distinct landmarks in the back of the image of what I was putting up on social media as well, so people knew what caravan park I was at, because I just thought that's really unsafe to do that. So that's probably the easiest, smartest thing to do. I had heard other tips too. People said have men's clothes hanging out, like on a laundry line. If you've got your clothes out, have like a big man's sloppy joe and, I don't know, a couple of work socks or something like that out there. Have a pair of men's boots at the front of your door if you're particularly thinking you want to have that male presence, so it looks like there is actually a guy with you. So to be honest, I did not do that. I didn't feel the need. I knew where I put the keys. I never lost my keys. I never left the keys in the pocket of, like in the little the stubby cooler holder of my chair outside. You know, I always made sure my keys were kind of, I had a little secret spot for them inside the caravan, which was difficult to find. I didn't have my handbag out on show. I would lock stuff away in my car and keep it locked if it was important, and have it underneath the seat. Really basic things that, to me, it's just really basic city living. Like, I did live in Sydney at the time, so I guess maybe I was more conscious of locking up and doing things the right way like that. But if you do that kind of stuff, nothing will go wrong, and that's exactly what happened. From a security point of view, nothing did go wrong for me in that respect, because I just exercised a little bit of common sense. When I finally finished, it was so funny. I was chatting to somebody from the company, and they said, how do you feel now? And I said, I'm exhausted. And the main reason why I was exhausted after 2 months, because I was working as well on the road, because I had to make every single decision for myself. So don't discredit how tiring it can get. That be probably a little bit more tiring than if you were with a partner, because you're making every single decision yourself, and you are chief security person for yourself as well. So I was in perfect health for that whole 2 month period. I also kept my exercise up as well, as much as I could, and there's videos there of Manny and I. We actually show a few of our exercise routines of what we would do. But that really helped me to have a great trip, because I wasn't under the weather at all, and I was really aware of my surroundings and just alert. So obviously when I was travelling in convoy with people, which I highly recommend if you can do that, and I travelled, my first convoy group was organised through the MDC Owners Group, so you can be part of that too if you ever join the Owners Group. I'd like to tell you also there's a group called Rolling Solo, which is, and I don't get any endorsements for that, I just know it's a good group. That is a whole bunch of women. They get hundreds of women go on their major trips. They do trips all around the year, and then it's just the people that you meet. So I met people from the MDC Owners Group, and that's how I got to go in convoy up to Cape York. So when you are in convoy with people that are from a trusted kind of group like that, be in convoy. I highly recommend it. You're still on your own, you're still doing your own thing, but when you go into campgrounds or campsites, you can make friends with people at the camp kitchens. A lot of campgrounds and caravan parks put on live music, so go down and watch it and socialise and mix with people and really talk to people. And don't sit in your caravan all the time. Like, sit out the front, sit in your chairs, say hi to people, meet with people, mix with them. Another question I got asked is, did I make friends while I was travelling? And the answer is yes, I did. I've talked about them, Mandy and Rolly, and all the people from the MDC owners group. They are going to be lifelong friends. Some of them people I knew already from my long association with MDC, but I also met people along the way while I was travelling. I very rarely ever sat by myself at night if I was having a meal somewhere, particularly if I was in a beer garden. I remember at Carumba, every night I met somebody different, and just be friendly, just be outgoing. People see that you are solo, and so if you instigate the first conversation and just smile and say hi, they will speak back to you. They really will. And they are intrigued by what you're doing. So you've got an instant line in with a conversation. If I got a bad, funny vibe on somebody, or it was just somebody that trust your instincts. I do have my spidey senses on. A couple of times if I was asked if I was solo, I said no. I said I'm just with my crew, just out of town. I'm just filling up with petrol. I'm going out to meet them now. You are slightly more vulnerable, I guess, being on your own than being with somebody else. But if you're just using your common sense that you would use anywhere, you'll be fine. So, did I have any issues with the car or the caravan? Absolutely nothing with the caravan. Oh, except for when it was tripping out, and that was like an electrical thing. I don't know. It was doing something in the system, and so it did. I was able to correct that on the very first outing with the help of Steve Zammit and Link from the MDC team. But from then on, as far as towing goes, as far as locking up everything goes, water, gas, operating the air conditioner, oh my God, the diesel heater. What a life thing that is. That's so amazing. I'm ruined now. I won't be able to camp in a tent ever again. There was nothing that went wrong. Even as far as there was no dust that got in underneath, like in through the vents, nothing went wrong with the caravan. With my car, I had one issue, which was pretty hilarious. Right at the end of the trip, I was doing so well, and I got all the way to, I think we were 8 k's from Punsan Bay, which is the last place you can stay at the tip of Cape York. And then I went through a little water crossing, and I came out of it, and it was I went in after Rolly, and I think I sort of went into his ruts too much, so I bottomed out a bit, and I came up out of it, and it pulled the bash plate off underneath the car. And I thought I'd done something colossal. I thought the engine had fallen out of it or something, but I didn't panic. That's the other thing, don't panic. Just calmly picked up the CB radio, which is my other tip. You must have CB radio. Must have CB radio, because that's how you can, and stay on the, I think it's 40 is the channel. Stay on that and you can hear what's going on, and that's how you overtake people and how you can hear about things that are ahead of you. And I just radioed through to Rolly, and I just said, something's dropped from my car. I've dropped something. And he's like, no worries, just pull up. And I pulled up behind them, and he looked underneath it. He said, of all the things you could do wrong, Melissa, it is the least, it's not even wrong. Of all the things to go wrong, it's the least bad thing that can happen. So I lost a bash plate. This is the other tip too, actually. I forgot about this. When I went and got into Laura, I had just done 3 weeks on my own. I'd been so good. I'd been hitching and unhitching the van by myself, reversing it in, doing all these things, spent all this solo time by myself, just about to meet up with my friends Mandy and Rolly at Laura, and I think I was 10 k's out of there, and then over the CB radio somebody came through and he said, oh, hey, driver of the XT10E. And that was my caravan. It's on the back of the caravan. I'm like, shit, that's me. Like, yes. And they're like, something's dragging behind under the car. You might want to pull over and check that out. So I pulled over, they kept driving, and what had happened is that the wiring that plugs in from the caravan through to the wiring of the car to keep it all charging and running, it's the Anderson plug. It had come out, and apparently they're notorious for coming out. I didn't know that. And it had been dragging along the ground, creating a whole lot of sparks. So thankfully it was really nice. Somebody had let me know that, but it just shredded down completely. And I'd pulled over, and I was standing there just holding this thing going, obviously it's okay, I'm going to get to Laura, no problems, meet up with Mandy and Rolly. But I'm like, far out, what does this thing even do, you know? Like, where am I going to get this fixed? Oh no, oh no. And then I heard a car pull up behind me. I thought, oh man, this is it. Like, who's this going to be? And you would not believe it, it was Mandy and Rolly. They popped out from behind my caravan and they're like, oh my God, we heard that you had a drama and we're literally a couple of k's behind you on the road. And they pulled up and it turns out Rolly's got 4 of these things spare. So he fixed it in 10 minutes flat, taped it all up and made a contraption so that it actually had a little hook on it so that it hooked in easier and it didn't come out for the rest of the trip. He said to me, he said, I can't tell you how many times I've fixed these for people, just people I don't know. He said, that's why I carry so many spare. They're so cheap. He has them in his car. He just fixes them with electrical tape, just wires it back up for the people. The code, I think, is particularly when you're in outback areas and somewhere like the Cape, is that people help people. We actually helped somebody when we were travelling in convoy up there. We came across a guy who'd spun out of control in a ute, I don't know what he did, spun out of control and went up this massive kind of like dirt ravine and was perched up on there, and either side, his chassis was just sitting across it, and either side with the wheels, and he was just he wasn't teeter-tottering, but he was sort of, his front of his car was in the plants. Lucky he didn't hit a tree. I don't know how he didn't hit a tree. He was just in all the shrubs. And he was a bit stunned, and there were 2 passengers. They couldn't get out because they couldn't open their doors to get out because it was kind of all compacted in with the sand. He just pulled them out. It was so easy, no damage done. The guy just said thank you to everybody, offered us all a free feed at Seisha Kitchen when we pulled into there because he was one of the chefs, and then took off and he went about his business, and we just told him to drive a bit more sensibly, and that was it. So it was really heartening like that. People help people out there on these roads. So even if you are solo and you are really worried about what is going to happen if something goes wrong, people pull over and help you. And caravanning is so popular these days that unless you're somewhere like the Simpson Desert on the most remotest road ever known to mankind, there's more than one car that goes past you within an hour. And in the caravanning world, we look after each other. I really hope I'm putting your minds at ease, because I've been there and done this now and experienced and talked to people and seen things go wrong and have stuff go wrong myself. And I want to share that knowledge with you, because I want to see more solo people out there to be able to go solo and take some time out and do the things that you want to do and feel safe and secure. And I hope that this podcast has really shared a lot of what I went through. And I am a city girl. I have got some camping knowledge, but honestly, if you just watch some of my caravan videos, you will see how basic and how simple it actually really is. How friendly people are that want to help you. How empowering it feels to be able to do this for yourself. How resourceful the MDC people are at helping you if you do need them. How helpful the MDC Owners Group is as being an incredible resource tool for helping you be on the road. I just really want to get that across. It really is possible. The only person that is limiting yourself is you, and we all deserve to live the best kind of life that we want to live. And if we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have somebody that wants to do this with us, we can still do it. So the very last question that I want to answer is, people said, would you do this trip again? And the answer to that is, I think you already know the answer, is yes, 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 yes. I would so do the trip again. I am going to do it again. I have just relocated up to the Brisbane area. Actually, I've moved from Sydney up here because I've just fallen in love with this Queensland state. It is an amazing state, and I want to see so much more of this state. So my next trips are definitely going to be Fraser Island, Stradbroke Island, and get inland as well. Then we are definitely, MDC Owners Group always take a crew of people out to the Big Red Bash. I will be going out there with the Owners Group. If you want to tag along and do it in convoy, get into the group and start talking now. We talk about it quite frequently, and become part of that and get involved and let people know. That's the other thing I forgot to mention with security. I always let my kids know where I was going to be, and then I would FaceTime them from there when I got there, just so they could see me and make sure I was there. That's it. I hope I've inspired a handful of you at the very least to get out there and see this beautiful country for all that it is. If you enjoyed it, please share it with people that you think that might get a lot out of this. People that would be thinking about traveling solo, male or female, would really learn something from this episode. People that are even traveling in couples or with their friends would get something out of this episode. So please like our page, share the content, comment. That does a really amazing things for the algorithms. I really appreciate that, and hope to see you out there on the tracks.
Yeah, because I just feel like if I'm not expanding my comfort zones, I'm shrinking them. I've really come to learn that, and the only person that's been holding me back my whole life is me. I've always wanted my partner to propel me along and do things with my partner and side by side with my partner, and so then I get held back from doing things that I might want to do because I'm waiting for my partner to want to do them. And if they don't want to do them, then I don't do them. Then I've got to try and fluke getting a partner who loves to do exactly like what I want to do. Is it possible to not have a partner and still do what you want to do? The answer to that is yes. So yeah, I'm going to switch this off in a second, concentrate, because we're back to corrugations, baby.